What if the most important warnings about the end of all empires were not hidden in secret societies or lost scrolls, but in the visions of a single captive standing between kings and lions? Long before our age of power and pride, a young exile named Daniel watched three friends walk into a furnace and come out without the smell of smoke, saw a mad king fall from a golden throne to eat grass like an animal, and read a glowing sentence written by an invisible hand that killed an empire in one night. He saw beasts rise from the sea, thrones set in place, and one like a son of man coming on the clouds to claim a kingdom that will never be destroyed. In this video, you're about to walk through fire, stand at the edge of the lion's den, and look over Daniel's shoulder as he sees the end of human history unfold. Before we begin, take a moment to subscribe to Kingdom Stories. And if this kind of cinematic journey through scripture stirs your heart, hit like and share this video so more people can discover the God who still reigns above every kingdom. When empires rose against heaven and kings believed they were gods, a quiet voice still echoed through captivity, a voice belonging to a young man set apart. Daniel lived in a time when kingdoms wrapped themselves in gold and iron, when idols towered over cities and men bent their knees to statues that could not speak. Yet Daniel and his friends bowed to only one God. Fires burned, lions roared, visions shook kings to their core. But through it all, the Most High proved himself faithful, walking in flames, shutting the mouths of beasts, and revealing what no human eyes could see. This is not merely an old tale, but the echo of eternity, the story of Daniel, the prophet who saw the end of empires. Jerusalem had fallen, ashes scattered on the wind as Babylon's armies stormed the sacred city. The gates were torn down, the temple plundered, and the people led away in chains. Among the captives was Daniel, a young noble from Judah, who stood silent as his homeland burned. He understood what many could not. God's presence did not live only in stone walls. It lived in hearts that remained faithful. The journey across the desert brought them to Babylon, a city shimmering under the sun, its blue-tiled gates rising like mountains. To the captives, it looked invincible, but to Daniel it was the stage where God would reveal his sovereignty. Taken into the royal court, Daniel and three friends were given new names, new clothes, new languages, all meant to erase their identity. Yet nothing could erase the spirit God placed within them. At the king's banquet, surrounded by gold and idol worship, Daniel made a quiet decision. He would not defile himself. He refused the royal food and wine, choosing instead a simple diet. After 10 days, he and his friends looked stronger and brighter than all the others. Nebuchadnezzar himself summoned them and found them 10 times wiser than the magicians of Babylon. Soon Daniel became known as a man who heard the voice of God, not the whispers of stars or omens. One night, the king awoke, trembling from a dream that terrified him. He demanded his advisers not only interpret the dream, but tell him what he had dreamed. None could do it. In fury, he ordered all the wise men killed, including Daniel. But Daniel prayed, and in the night God revealed the dream, a great statue with a head of gold, chest of silver, belly of bronze, legs of iron, and feet of iron mixed with clay. Then a stone, not cut by human hands, struck the statue, shattering every kingdom. Only the stone remained and grew into a mountain, filling the earth. Daniel told the king, "You are the head of gold, but after you will rise other kingdoms, each one passing away. In the end, God will establish a kingdom that will never be destroyed." Nebuchadnezzar bowed before Daniel, declaring that Daniel's God was truly the God of gods. But pride returned. The king built a golden statue and commanded all to bow. When Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego refused, they were thrown into a furnace heated 7 times hotter. Yet, as the flames rose, a fourth figure appeared with them, one who looked like a son of the gods. They emerged untouched, and Nebuchadnezzar proclaimed the power of the God who delivers. Still, God warned him again through a dream of a great tree cut down. Daniel pleaded with the king to humble himself, but a year later Nebuchadnezzar stood on his palace roof boasting of his greatness. A voice from heaven declared his kingdom taken away. He lived like a beast until he lifted his eyes to heaven and acknowledged the Most High. His reason returned, and he glorified God. Years passed. Nebuchadnezzar died, and Belshazzar ruled. One night he held a grand feast, drinking from the sacred vessels taken from the temple in Jerusalem. As he praised idols of gold and stone, a hand appeared and wrote on the wall, "Mene, mene, tekel, parsin." Daniel interpreted the message. God had numbered Belshazzar's days, weighed him, and found him lacking. His kingdom would fall to the Medes and Persians. That very night Babylon collapsed, and Belshazzar was killed. Under King Darius, Daniel served faithfully, rising above all governors. Jealous officials plotted against him, convincing the king to sign a decree that no one could pray to any god except the king for 30 days. Daniel continued to pray openly to the God of Israel. He was arrested, and though Darius tried to save him, the law could not be revoked. Daniel was thrown into a den of lions, yet God sent an angel to shut their mouths. At dawn the king rushed to the den and heard Daniel's calm voice. "My God sent his angel to protect me." Daniel was lifted out unharmed. His accusers were thrown in and devoured instantly. Darius issued a decree commanding all nations to honor the God of Daniel. In old age, Daniel received visions of the future, beasts rising from the sea, thrones set up, and the Ancient of Days sitting in judgment. He saw one like the Son of Man coming with the clouds, receiving an everlasting kingdom. He saw spiritual battles behind earthly empires and a time of trouble unlike any before. Yet he also saw hope, deliverance for God's people, resurrection for the righteous, and a kingdom that will never pass away. Daniel's life stretched across empires, Babylonian and Persian, but through it all he remained faithful. He walked through fire and darkness, through palaces and lions' dens, yet his eyes stayed fixed on the God who writes history. His visions echo through the centuries, reminding us that kingdoms rise and fall, but the kingdom of God stands forever. With the royal executioner already tasked with carrying out the sentence, the fate of every wise man in Babylon seemed sealed. Yet Daniel did not fall into panic or despair. With a calmness that came from somewhere deeper than fear, he looked at Arioch, the officer sent to take his life, and gently asked, "Why is the king's decree so severe?" Arioch explained the king's impossible demand. Tell him not only the meaning of his dream, but the dream itself. Hearing this, Daniel did something no one expected. He asked for time, not to run, not to plead, but to seek an answer from God. That night, he gathered Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. The 4 young men knelt on the floor of their chamber, their heads bowed as torchlight flickered and slowly faded into the quiet darkness before dawn. Their voices rose softly yet firmly, pleading for mercy, for revelation, for the lives of all the wise men who would die if the king's request went unanswered. And then, in the stillness, the answer came. In a dream, Daniel saw exactly what the king had seen, a towering statue standing before him, its head made of shining gold, its chest and arms of silver, its belly and thighs of bronze, its legs of iron, and its feet a fragile mixture of iron and clay. As he watched, a stone, cut not by human hands, rushed down from heaven and smashed against the statue's feet. The entire figure shattered, turning into dust that the wind carried away. But the stone grew larger and larger until it became a mountain filling the whole earth. Daniel awoke with clarity burning in his heart. The wisdom of the Most High had rested on him. As the first light of dawn touched his face, he lifted his eyes upward and whispered a blessing. "Blessed be the name of God forever and ever. for wisdom and power belong to him. He changes times and seasons. He removes kings and establishes kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and understanding to the discerning. Soon he stood before Nebuchadnezzar. Arioch led him through grand corridors lined with golden columns and tapestries telling the victories of Babylon. The throne loomed ahead, with the king watching from above, unease still etched across his face. "Are you able," the king asked, "to tell me what I dreamed and what it means?" Daniel did not bow his head in fear. Instead, he spoke with steady honesty. "No man can reveal this mystery, O king, no magician, enchanter, or wise man, but there is a God in heaven who reveals hidden secrets. He has shown you what will happen in the last days." A deep silence fell. Daniel described the statue in detail. The gold, the silver, the bronze, the iron, and the fragile mixture of clay. He explained how the stone struck the feet, shattering every human kingdom. And he revealed what Nebuchadnezzar feared and yet longed to know. You are the head of gold. God has given you dominion and glory. But after you another kingdom will rise, inferior to yours, and then a third, of bronze, which will rule over all the earth. After that, a fourth kingdom, strong as iron, will come, breaking and crushing everything. But in the end, when kingdoms are divided, the God of heaven will establish a kingdom that will never be destroyed, one that will not be left to another people. His kingdom will stand forever. The words pierced the king's heart like invisible arrows. The brilliant throne room fell utterly silent. Then Nebuchadnezzar did something unimaginable. He rose from his throne, descended the steps, and bowed before Daniel. The king of the most powerful empire on earth bowed before a young exile from Judah. "Truly," he declared before the entire court, "your God is the God of gods and the Lord of kings. He reveals hidden mysteries, for no man could have told me what I saw." Daniel was honored with royal garments, a gold necklace, and authority over the province of Babylon. Yet he did not exalt himself, for he knew the wisdom came from God alone. The king slept peacefully that night, but the meaning of the dream had only begun to unfold. The statue spoke of empires to come and the destiny of the whole world. In the following days, Babylon's pride burned even brighter. Nebuchadnezzar, carried away by power, ordered a gigantic image of gold, nearly 30 meters high, raised in the plain of Dura. It gleamed beneath the desert sun, a monument to human glory. All officials, leaders, and people of many nations gathered. At the sound of trumpets and harps, everyone was commanded to bow down. Those who refused would be thrown into a blazing furnace. When the music played, thousands fell to their knees, but 3 men remained standing: Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Their courage stood out like a flame against the sea of bowed heads. Furious officials rushed to the palace. "O king," they cried, "there are 3 Jews who do not obey your decree. They will not bow to your image." Nebuchadnezzar summoned them. His voice boomed across the throne room. "Is this true? I will give you one more chance. When the music plays, bow down. If you do not, you will be thrown into the fire. And what God can deliver you from my hands?" Shadrach stepped forward. His voice was calm, almost gentle. "O king, we do not need to defend ourselves in this matter. The God we serve is able to deliver us from the furnace and from your hand. But even if he does not, we will not serve your gods or bow before your image." Rage twisted the king's face. He ordered the furnace heated 7 times hotter than usual. The strongest soldiers tied the 3 men and threw them into the flames. The heat was so fierce it killed the soldiers at the entrance. But inside the fire, something impossible happened. Nebuchadnezzar, peering through the opening, staggered back in shock. "Did we not throw 3 men into the fire?" he shouted. "I see 4 men walking freely, and the 4th looks like a son of the gods." The ropes had burned away, yet the men's clothing remained intact. The flames that devoured everything around them could not touch them. A peaceful light filled the furnace. Trembling, the king approached the opening. "Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out." They stepped out unharmed, not even smelling of smoke. A hush fell across the valley, and the king who had built the golden statue now lifted his voice and proclaimed the greatness of their God. Before we continue, if powerful biblical stories like this inspire you, take a moment to subscribe to Kingdom Stories and share this video. Together, we can bring these ancient truths to more people seeking hope and understanding. Nebuchadnezzar now raised his voice before all the nations and proclaimed, "Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who sent his angel and delivered his servants. And he issued a decree that no one in his empire should ever speak against their God. For there is no other God who can deliver in this way." The flames finally died, but the testimony remained. The fire that devoured iron and stone could not touch the hearts of those three men, because something far greater than fear had walked with them, the presence of the eternal God. Daniel watched from a distance, saw the king's expression soften, saw the crowds kneel, and he understood that even in exile, even under a foreign crown, the Lord still ruled over the kingdoms of men. Babylon's pillars shone bright, but a new truth had been carved into the king's heart like a mark of fire. No human power could rival the God of heaven. Soon Daniel's name and that of his friends spread throughout the empire. People whispered in the marketplaces, nobles murmured over their banquets. The God of the Hebrews is a fire that does not burn, a light that does not fade. That night, Nebuchadnezzar stood on his golden balcony, the wind brushing through the hanging gardens as fountains echoed softly around him. He remembered everything he had witnessed, and a small seed took root in his heart, a certainty that someone far above him ruled the earth. Yet seeds take time, and this one had not yet grown. Pride, like an ember hidden beneath ashes, waited for its moment to blaze once more. Years passed, and Babylon rose to even greater splendor. Its towers pierced the sky, its gardens floated over the desert like a paradise, and the rivers that ran through it glimmered like gold. Nebuchadnezzar had become the most powerful man on earth. No kingdom dared challenge him, no army could defeat him, and in his heart grew something more dangerous than any enemy: pride. One night he dreamed again, not of statues of metal and stone, but of a tree so vast it reached the heavens. Its leaves were lush, its fruit abundant, feeding the whole earth. Animals found shelter beneath it. Birds built their nests in its branches. Then a voice thundered from heaven: "Cut down the tree, strip its branches, scatter its fruit, leave only the stump bound with iron and bronze, and let the heart of the man be changed into the heart of a beast. Let 7 times pass over him, until he knows that the Most High rules the kingdom of men and gives it to whomever he wills." When the king awoke, his face was pale. He summoned his magicians and wise men, but none could interpret the dream. Then he remembered Daniel, the one through whom heaven spoke, and he sent for him. Daniel entered the hall quietly. The golden columns gleamed, yet a heaviness hung in the air. After hearing the dream, Daniel's face fell. He hesitated, not from fear of the king, but from sorrow at the message he must deliver. Nebuchadnezzar saw his expression and urged him, "Daniel, do not be afraid. Speak what you have seen." Daniel took a slow breath. "O king, the great tree is you. Your power has grown and reaches to the heavens, and your greatness extends to the ends of the earth. But the decree of the Watcher is clear. You will be driven from among men. You will live with the beasts of the field. You will eat grass like an ox, and the dew of heaven will drench you until you acknowledge that the Most High rules over the kingdoms of men and gives them to whomever he pleases." The king was silent. Daniel, moved with compassion, stepped closer and said, "O king, Accept my counsel. Turn from your sins by doing what is right and show mercy to the poor. Perhaps then your peace will continue. But pride, even when cut down, can rise again from hidden roots. 12 months passed. One evening as the sun set, Nebuchadnezzar walked upon the roof of his palace. The towers shimmered, the gardens swayed in the breeze, and the city below glowed with the light of torches. His heart swelled with arrogance. Is not this the great Babylon that I have built by my mighty power and for the glory of my majesty? And while the words were still in his mouth, a voice from heaven declared, O King Nebuchadnezzar, your kingdom has been taken from you. You will be driven from among men and will live with the animals. You will eat grass like an ox until you acknowledge that the Most High is sovereign over the kingdoms of men. The brilliance of the palace dimmed. The king's reason shattered. He was driven out, wandering the fields with hair growing like eagle's feathers and nails like claws. For 7 long years the once great king lived like an animal, drenched in dew, forgotten by the world yet still held in the hand of God. And when the appointed time was complete, something stirred within him. One morning at sunrise, Nebuchadnezzar lifted his eyes toward heaven. In that single moment of surrender, his sanity returned. Tears streamed down his face as he whispered, I bless the Most High, whose kingdom is everlasting and whose dominion endures from generation to generation. His throne was restored, his glory returned. But this time his heart was changed. Power no longer intoxicated him. Humility guided him. He understood what no king had understood before. All human power is temporary, but God's rule is eternal. The rest of his years were spent in peace, giving honor to the God of Daniel. Yet Babylon's splendor would not last. The God who lifts up kingdoms also brings them down, and the time was coming when Babylon would fall. Daniel, now older, saw the signs. The young captive had become the prophet of empires. He had watched pride rise and crumble, fire obey God's command, and heaven write its warnings across stone walls. And he knew that soon another message would appear, a message that would bring the empire to its knees. After Nebuchadnezzar's death, Belshazzar reigned. But unlike his ancestor, he learned nothing from history. Pride still sat upon the Chaldean throne. One night the palace overflowed with celebration. Torches reflected off marble columns, music echoed through the hall, and 1,000 nobles drank from golden goblets, the same sacred vessels Nebuchadnezzar had once taken from the temple of the Lord in Jerusalem. Hands meant to worship God now lifted wine in praise to lifeless idols, and the goblets once placed before the altar were profaned in drunken revelry. Before we continue, if stories like this awaken something in you, faith, or the desire to understand God's hand in history, take a moment to subscribe to Kingdom Stories and share this video so these powerful truths can reach those who need hope. The drunkenness of men filled the royal hall as Belshazzar, overcome by wine, lifted his golden goblet high and shouted, "Praise be to the gods of gold, silver, bronze, iron, wood, and stone." The crowd roared, flutes played wildly, but then, suddenly, a cold wind swept through the chamber. Laughter died, torches flickered, and before every eye a hand appeared, suspended in the air, writing on the white wall near the great lampstand. The king's face drained of color, his knees trembled, metal rang as goblets fell from tables. Silence overtook the feast. The words glowed like fire. Mene, mene, tekel, parsin. Terrified, Belshazzar called for every magician, astrologer, and diviner in Babylon. Whoever can read the writing and tell its meaning will be clothed in purple, adorned with a gold chain, and made third ruler in the kingdom. But none could read it. None could understand it. Fear spread like smoke. Then the queen entered, her voice steady amid panic. "O king, live forever! There is a man in your kingdom in whom dwells the spirit of the holy gods. In the days of your father he possessed light, understanding and wisdom like that of the gods. His name is Daniel." Belshazzar sent for him immediately. Daniel, now old and grey-haired, walked into the hall with a calm unlike any other. Torchlight reflected on his serene face as the trembling king said, "I have heard that the spirit of the gods is in you. If you can read this writing and reveal its meaning, you shall be clothed in purple, given a gold chain, and made third in the kingdom." Daniel looked first at the wall, then at the king. His voice was firm and unwavering. "Keep your gifts for yourself, and give your rewards to another. But I will read the writing and make known its meaning to you." He pointed to the burning letters. "O king, the Most High gave Nebuchadnezzar your father kingship and glory. But when his heart was lifted up in pride, he was humbled until he acknowledged that God rules over the kingdom of men. But you, Belshazzar, though you knew all this, have not humbled your heart. Instead, you have exalted yourself against the Lord of heaven. You brought the vessels of his house to drink from, and you praised gods who neither see, nor hear, nor understand. But you did not honor the God who holds your very breath in his hand." Then Daniel turned back to the wall. "This is the interpretation. Mene, God has numbered the days of your kingdom and brought it to an end. Tekel, you have been weighed in the balance and found wanting. Peres, your kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and Persians." The king stood frozen. The wine in his cup tasted bitter. Festivities ceased. Fear thickened the air. Yet Belshazzar, keeping his word, ordered Daniel robed in purple and adorned with a gold chain. But as the old prophet left the hall, destiny's trumpet was already sounding in the distance. That very night, while Babylon slept in drunken confidence, the armies of Persia advanced in silence. King Cyrus diverted the Euphrates River, lowering its waters until his soldiers marched through the dry riverbed beneath the city gates. Babylon, once thought unconquerable, fell without a battle. Inside the palace, Belshazzar still stared at the wall when he heard the crash of breaking doors. Spears clattered, shouts filled the golden corridors. He barely rose before the enemy reached him. That night, Belshazzar, king of the Chaldeans, was slain. The roar of empire fell silent. The torches of Babylon went dark. The gods of gold and stone were reduced to dust. The kingdom passed to the Medes and Persians, and a new ruler sat on the throne, Darius the Mede. Yet Daniel remained. The old prophet walked through the rise and fall of kings because his strength came not from earth, but from the God who governs heaven. Kingdoms shifted like sand, but the voice of God continued to speak through him. With Darius's rise came a new test, one that would lead Daniel not into fire, but into the jaws of lions. Darius, though a foreigner, ruled with wisdom that impressed all. Daniel quickly rose above every governor and official. His integrity was flawless, his character unshakable. Soon he became the king's most trusted advisor. But where light shines, shadows gather. Jealous princes and satraps whispered among themselves, searching for any flaw. They found none. "We will never find anything against this man," they said, "unless it concerns the law of his God." For days they plotted carefully. Then they approached the king with flattery. "O King Darius, live forever. All the governors agree that you should establish a decree that for 30 days no one may make a petition to any god or man except you. Whoever disobeys shall be thrown into the lion's den." The king, unaware of their scheme, signed the decree. The royal seal pressed into clay made the law unchangeable. When Daniel heard, he did not hide or hesitate. He went to his room, opened the windows toward Jerusalem, and as he had always done, knelt and prayed 3 times a day. Not in rebellion, but in faithfulness. The conspirators watched. When they saw him kneeling, they rushed to the king. "O king, have you not signed the decree?" "Yes," Darius replied, "and it cannot be revoked." "Then know this, Daniel pays you no attention. He prays to his God 3 times a day. The king's heart sank. He realized the trap too late. All day he sought a way to save Daniel, but the accusers pressed him. "Remember, O king, the law of the Medes and Persians cannot be changed." At sunset, with anguish heavy in his voice, Darius ordered Daniel brought forth. The old prophet stood calmly as he was lowered into the den. The king whispered, "Your God, whom you continually serve, will deliver you." A stone was rolled over the entrance and sealed. The palace fell into silence. No music played. No feast was held. The king fasted and could not sleep. Deep in the den, Daniel felt the earth cold beneath him, heard the slow growling of lions in the dark. But his spirit did not tremble. Then something impossible happened. A gentle wind swept through the chamber. Dust lifted like a thin veil. A faint sacred light filled the darkness. An angel of the Lord stood beside Daniel, and the lions that once roared in hunger fell utterly silent. The eyes of the lions, which had once gleamed like burning coals in the darkness, now shimmered with an inexplicable calm. Their growls faded into silence. Their jaws, those same jaws that had torn apart armies, hung still as if held by an unseen command. The night stretched long and heavy, yet not a single claw touched Daniel. In the earliest light of dawn, before the sun had risen above the palace walls, King Darius ran toward the den, his voice breaking through the quiet with desperation. "Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God, whom you continually serve, been able to deliver you from the lions?" For a moment, the world held its breath. Then, from deep within the stone chamber, a serene and steady voice rose. "O King, live forever. My God sent his angel and shut the mouths of the lions. They have not harmed me, because I was found innocent before him and before you." Overwhelmed, the king fell to his knees in tears. He ordered the stone rolled away and commanded Daniel to be lifted out of the den. Not a wound could be found on him, not a scratch, not even a torn thread. But justice would be swift. The very men who had plotted against Daniel were thrown into the den, and before their feet even touched the ground, the lions that had been silent all night sprang upon them with terrifying force. King Darius then issued a decree that spread across nations, languages, and distant lands. "Peace be multiplied to you. I command that in every dominion of my kingdom men tremble and fear before the God of Daniel, for he is the living God, enduring forever. His kingdom will never be destroyed, and his dominion will know no end. He delivers and rescues. He performs signs and wonders in heaven and on earth. It is he who delivered Daniel from the power of the lions." And once again, the glory of the God of Israel shone through the heart of an empire. Daniel grew old, yet his faith never dimmed. From Babylon to Persia, he served kings as a quiet witness of a kingdom not built by human hands. But heaven still held mysteries for him, visions of future empires rising and collapsing, and of a time far beyond his own, the time of the end. And while the world slept, God opened the heavens before the prophet's eyes. He saw the sea churn and roar, and out of the deep waters emerged 4 great beasts, each different from the other. The first rose like a lion with eagle's wings, the second like a bear raised up on one side with 3 ribs clenched between its teeth, the third swift like a leopard bearing 4 wings and 4 heads, but the fourth terrible, monstrous beyond comprehension, crushed and devoured everything in its path. Iron teeth, trampling feet, and from its horns a small one emerged with human eyes and a mouth filled with arrogance. Daniel trembled, yet he continued to watch. Suddenly the stormy seas calmed and the heavens parted. Thrones were set in place, and the Ancient of Days took his seat. His clothing was white as snow, his hair pure as wool, and his throne blazed with fire. Rivers of flame poured out from before him, and thousands upon thousands stood in his presence. The books were opened, and judgment began. The beasts lost their dominion. The arrogant horn was silenced. And then Daniel saw something even more glorious. In the clouds of heaven appeared one like the Son of Man. He approached the Ancient of Days and was given dominion, glory, and an everlasting kingdom, one that all peoples, nations, and languages would serve. His dominion would be everlasting. His kingdom would never be destroyed. Daniel fell to his knees, overwhelmed. What he witnessed was not merely the future of empires, but the destiny of the world itself. The gold of Babylon, the silver of the Medes, the bronze of the Greeks, the iron of the Romans, all would crumble. But the kingdom of the Son of Man would remain forever. Yet the visions did not cease. Rams and goats clashed. Horns rose and broke. Kings rose and fell. The angel beside him spoke clearly. These visions are true, but they concern the time of the end. Daniel saw a world shrouded in darkness, nations devouring nations, and the arrogance of men repeating itself again and again throughout the ages. He saw rulers who would exalt themselves against heaven, challenge the Most High, persecute the righteous, and trample what was sacred. But he also saw hope, the judgment of evil, the deliverance of God's people, and the dawn of an eternal kingdom. In one encounter, while Daniel prayed, a heavenly messenger appeared before him, surrounded by a light too bright for mortal eyes. The angel said, "From the first day you set your heart to understand and humbled yourself before God, your words were heard. I have come because of them." But the prince of Persia resisted for 21 days, until Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me. In that moment Daniel understood. The wars of earth were shadows of a greater conflict, the spiritual battle behind the rise and fall of kingdoms. He saw principalities and powers, angels and forces of darkness wrestling beyond the sight of men. The visions continued, terrifying, majestic, overwhelming. Daniel fainted, but the angel touched him gently. "Do not be afraid, you who are highly esteemed. Peace be to you. Be strong now, be strong." Strength returned to him, though his heart trembled at the weight of what he had seen. He saw a future tyrant, a king filled with pride and cruelty, who would attempt to change times and laws. He saw an abomination standing in the holy place. He saw God's people tested, refined as gold in fire. Yet he also heard a promise. "At that time, Michael, the great prince who stands watch over your people, will arise. There will be a time of distress unlike anything since nations first existed. But at that time your people, everyone whose name is written in the book, will be delivered." Daniel lifted his eyes and saw a throne of radiant light above the clouds, and beneath it multitudes rising from the dust, some to everlasting life, others to shame and eternal contempt. And he heard the Most High declare that the wise would shine like the brightness of the heavens, and those who lead many to righteousness like the stars forever and ever. Then the angel said, "Go your way, Daniel. These words are sealed until the time of the end. Many will search for knowledge, and understanding will increase. But the wise will understand." The visions faded. The clouds dissolved. Daniel, now old, knelt in silence as the sun rose over the land of the Chaldeans. He knew his life was nearing its end, yet he felt no fear. What he had witnessed would echo throughout eternity. He had served earthly kings, but he belonged to the eternal King. He had seen empires rise and fall, but he had glimpsed a kingdom that would never pass away. And as the wind swept across the sands of ancient Babylon, Daniel smiled in peace. The God who shut the mouths of lions and revealed mysteries to kings had shown him the greatest revelation of all, the end of time and the dawn of eternity. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to Kingdom Stories, hit the notification bell, and share this video so more people can discover the power, hope, and eternal truth found in God's Word.